Okay, welcome to Autonomous 2.0 with AI-assisted interactive test authoring and more, a special sneak peek webinar presented by Applitools. I'm Tim Hines, product marketing lead at Applitools, and I'll be the session host today. I'm joined by our CTO, Adam Carmi. Adam's the inventor of visual testing and the co-founder of Applitools. As CTO, he brings more than 20 years of technological leadership and innovation experience to Applitools. Prior to founding Applitools, he held management, research, and development positions at SafeEnd, IBM, Microsoft, and Intel Corporation. Adam holds a bachelor's and master's degrees in computer science from the Technion and regularly talks about software testing at conferences around the world.
Okay, so hi everyone, and welcome to the session. Very excited to share our new release with you. 4 months ago, we released the first version of Autonomous, a fully autonomous test automation platform for websites and multi-page web applications. And that was after years of research and development. And since that successful release, we have been hard at work on Autonomous 2.0, which we plan to release by the end of the month. This new release includes major enhancements and addresses feedback that we received from our early customers and users. And as you will see, Autonomous 2.0 is the most advanced and innovative test automation platform in the market. And if you thought that the first version was cool, this new version is going to blow your mind away. So as usual, I'm super proud of the Applitools product and engineering teams for delivering such a wonderful and complex product to the market. And I'm very excited to give you this sneak peek at this amazing product ahead of its release. As usual, we have a ton of things to cover. We'll start by discussing why autonomous testing is needed, and a small hint, it's not to get us all out of a job. We'll then do a quick recap of Autonomous 1.0 and its capabilities. We'll then talk about the highlights of what's coming in the upcoming release in version 2.0. And from that moment on, we'll just take a deep dive into the major features in the release and demo them live. I promise you that most of the time we'll be showing the product and not slides. And as Tim said, at the end, we'll have time to answer any questions that you may have. So let's get started. So why do we need autonomous testing? The sad reality is that many teams struggle today with succeeding with test automation. And frankly, most teams fail to succeed with test automation at scale. The traditional approach is just hard and difficult to manage for most teams. And the goal of autonomous testing is to make automation at scale accessible effortlessly to all. And what does that mean? It means that we need to help teams attain much higher coverage from their automated test, getting them to 80% or more test coverage from below 20, where most teams are today, and also allow their test automation to catch unexpected effects that today they only catch with exploratory testing. It means lowering the required skill set to do test automation from developer skills to quality knowledge, and also to drastically reduce human involvement from total involvement that is required today to basically the need to only intervene to review test results and finding and fill up the gaps where the AI cannot test by itself. So a quick recap on Autonomous 1.0, the first version of Autonomous that was released in March this year. It is an end-to-end platform that includes everything you need out of the box, including devices and browsers to run your tests on, test scheduling. So basically, you don't need anything but point it at your website to start testing. It allows you to automatically discover any website and produce a self-maintaining test suite that will actually, on every run, as you can see on the video that is playing here, the right-hand side of the presentation. On every run, it will actually visit and find any page on your website, detecting any pages that are faulty, that are crashing, timing out, have errors in them, inaccessible, or just not found. Report all of these all the pages that it can find, it will automatically render them and validate them against baseline images across all the devices and browsers that you want to test on. If there are any new pages that are detected, you will know about them. If any pages are missing, there will be issues that will be reported to you as an issue. So basically, any change that your end user will see on your website whatsoever, for whatever reason, whether it's because new features were added or new content was pushed, whether it's because a bug was introduced, or even if you didn't change a line of code in your website, just the fact that a browser version updated, as they often do, or an operating system was upgraded, and that affected the appearance or functionality of your website, you will know about it. So basically, total coverage for your website out of the box without you having to do anything but point autonomous at your website. Now, of course, every application has some things in it that are unique to the owner, to the company that builds it, some forms and business logic that is unique to it. The autonomous part of autonomous will not be able to cover it, and these are the exact places where you will come in and build your own custom flows. And autonomous allows you to do it in the most convenient way. Just describe these flows in plain English. You don't need to know how to code. You don't need to use locator skills to use locators or maintain them. All you need to do is just describe in plain English what are the flows, and the AI will execute them for you. You can parameterize those tests and perform data-driven tests to get the most coverage that you need. And on top of that all, everything that Applitools is known for, visual AI, the best visual testing technology in the industry, is there working for you, technology that you can scale with, that have been developed for over 10 years, with over 2 billion tests used to refine it. It's all there for you to use and scale, and also the automated maintenance capabilities that allow you to avoid repetitive maintenance activities and scale the amount of testing and test results that you need to review without really increasing the amount of maintenance overhead. So that's it about Autonomous 1.0, and let's start talking about the new version. So we've made a lot of enhancements and improvements to Autonomous 2.0, and they fall into three major areas. The first one is that we have added an interactive browser that now accompanies the experience of authoring custom flows. And this means that you can now debug tests in real time, and you can also combine writing custom flow tests in plain English and also recording them interactively by interacting with that browser. We've also enhanced our language model to automatically correct mistakes that you make when you are writing those tests. So if you have syntax or grammar mistakes, or the level of English that your teammates have is not so good and they write cumbersome step descriptions, the language model will automatically correct everything they do, so your tests remain beautiful, concise, and clear for everyone else. The second area of focus was to go beyond visual AI and visual checkpoints that Autonomous 1.0 was very focused on for obvious reasons, and basically allow you to describe in plain English everything that you would do in your coded test. You can add non-visual assertions, initiate HTTP requests, use variables to manipulate dynamic data, and then again, anything you can do with code, you can now do with Autonomous. And the last area of improvement is basically a broad range of user experience improvements intended to make it much easier for you to review test results at scale and reduce test maintenance. So without further ado, let's see Autonomous in action. We will be using the following demo website to show our demos. It's basically a mock retail application. We have products, we have some product pages. Drilling down, double-clicking into a product gives us all the details. We can add it to the cart. We can do billing flows on that cart, of course. And on every page on this website, there's a contact us link. If we click it, we get to this contact us form where we need to fill up our details and click the submit button. And then a representative of the company would reach out to us. So that's the demo site. Let's start with with a feature by feature and see the features in action. And we'll start with the least exciting stuff. It will only get much more exciting moving forward, I promise you. So first of all, we've vastly improved the user experience for reviewing test results. We can just take a look at it here in the product itself. Heading to the test results pane, we can see the recent plan runs. A plan in Autonomous, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is like a build. It basically combines the tests, a set of tests, the test data that drives them, the devices and browsers that you would execute the tests on, and the schedule that determines when those tests will run. Of course, you can initiate test runs manually or from your CI using an API, but regardless, there's a built-in scheduling mechanism that automatically runs the test. If we double-click on the latest test result in this example, in this case, you can see that we have 4 tabs that give you different perspectives on the test execution. The plan summary includes details about the plan itself, this plan run. It shows you a high-level summary of the tests and their test status, as well as the screens that are validated as part of the run. It is an interactive summary report, so you can actually easily drill down on specific environments and see the details that are specific to it. And all the links here are basically interactive. So if, for example, you want to see unresolved screens and you click it, it will automatically move to the screens page with the appropriate filters set up. So it's very easy to drill down on the results that you want to see. The second tab is the plan and issues. Plan issues and changes tab that basically summarizes all the issues that were found on the run. These could be visual differences that were detected in different tests, as well as HTTP issues with your website. For example, the about page here that is simply not found and got a 404 error response. The third tab is the plan screens, which allows you to see the visual differences detected on the last run. It allows you to very easily see the differences, maintain the baselines, just like you used to do with Autonomous, the first version, and with the ICE product. You have full control on filtering the data that is here, from filtering tests by their status or by the type of test. You can sort the results by whatever criteria that you want, or you can group the tests in whatever way that you want as well. The fourth tab allows you to drill down and see the results of the specific tests that ran as part of this plan. In this case, we had 3 of them. One full website test, which is the self-maintaining test suite, and 2 custom flows that we have previously written. For each of these, you can see the statuses, you can see the individual issues they have, and you can also drill down quickly to see the status per execution environment as well. If we drill down further into one of the tests, we can actually see that we have the same tabs as before that allow us to get just the perspective of this test and its test results. But for custom flows, we also have full visibility into each step of that test. For example, step number 4, clicking the increment button, we can see on the right-hand side the outcome of this action. So we can see that the amount is actually incremented to 2. And if we look at the action itself, we see the image before the action took place when it was 1, and this is the element that interacted with, so we can see that the AI did exactly what we meant it to do when we asked it to click the increment button. In order to figure out what went wrong in this offline remote execution. Okay, up to the next feature. This is a feature that many of you have been using eyes would appreciate greatly. It allows you to basically set baseline regions that automatically adjust their size and position following application page changes. And it is done by automatically attaching regions to DOM elements that represents the baseline or the checkpoint image. This approach has many advantages over the previous functionality that we have, where you had to manually draw regions on the page. First of all, it prevents you from having to manually adjust the region's position and size following changes to the application. It happens automatically. With a single click, you place the region, which is easier than drawing it. And you don't need to deal with locators or anything like that, like you had to do with eyes if you're using coded dynamic regions from the SDK. So here you just place them on the DOM and you don't need to worry about locators. You can easily specify internal or external margins for the region with respect to the DOM element that it is attached to. We also added the ability to automatically convert all the drawn regions into linked regions, as we call them. You can do it at the step level, at the test level, or even at the entire plan level. So it's very easy to migrate your existing drawn regions to linked regions. So let's see this in action. It's actually pretty easy to show and quick to show. If we head back to the plan and the plan screens and we look at any of the differences that were found, we can see that we have some differences over here. We can zoom in on them. You can see that the difference is in the time of the warning here. Basically, we don't want this to fail our tests anymore. We want to ignore it. We have two options. I can draw the regions just like I could do before, or I can just select the element. And when I do it, as I hover over the elements, I can see the DOM elements beneath them. I can just choose one and click on it, and basically I'm done. So pretty straightforward. Now we're getting to the interesting stuff. Interactive custom flow test authoring. Basically, with the addition of the interactive browser to the experience of test authoring, we have actually upgraded custom flow creation to be the world's most advanced no-code test authoring experience. It allows us to accelerate test authoring by allowing us to record the UI interactions in plain English. This is a full-blown IDE that allows you to do everything that a developer can do with his code, which makes it super easy to debug issues in real time and fix them very quickly. A very important advantage of this approach is that it allows you to easily overcome situations when the recorder makes a mistake. With most record and playback tools that are out there, if the recorder makes a mistake, and it's unavoidable because developers can be very creative in the way that they build their application, at some point the recorder will get confused. When that happens, usually as a user, you are stuck. Unless you have developer skills and the tool allows you to write some code to overcome the problem, if you're just trying to record an interaction and the recorder doesn't pick it up correctly, you're just stuck, and you're stuck with reporting a ticket to the vendor to help you out. With this approach of combining writing steps in plain English and recording, you can easily remediate situations like that yourself, because you can see exactly in plain English what the recorder recorded, and you can actually edit it in plain English and describe in the correct and better way what is the element that you are trying to interact with and how you're trying to interact with it. So you have all the skills needed at your disposal to correct mistakes like that, and they do happen, of course, as many of you know. One thing that is very important about this feature is that the interactive browser that you're getting is actually a screen share into a real headful browser that is running on our execution cloud. Just like I'm sharing my screen with you right now, we are sharing the screen of the real browser that is running on our infrastructure. There are two important advantages here. First of all, you don't need to install anything. You don't need to download an application to run locally. You don't need to install an extension. You don't need to ask permission from anyone, from the security team to install something. And you don't need to worry about getting this thing upgraded when there are updates or bug fixes. It's just there and it is working for you embedded in your browser window. The second advantage is that the environment in which you author the test is completely identical to the environment that will run your test offline. And this solves a huge headache for many users because in many cases, when you're using record playback tools, you download something that you run locally. So you end up running things behind the firewall that end up executing offline outside the firewall. Maybe your local environment, your browser, for example, is already has a certain state with respect to the application under test. Maybe you're already logged in. Maybe you've made some choices that affects your experience. So when you are recording the test locally, it works. When you're running it locally, it works. But when you're trying to run it offline on the test infrastructure, it doesn't work because it starts from scratch and it's not at the same state as your local deployment. In this case, all these problems go away. You're always authoring and editing your test in the exact same infrastructure, exactly the same browsers that execute your tests offline. So let's see this in action. So there are many ways to start to author a custom flow. One of the easiest ones is just to head to one of the existing screens and ask to create a test that starts from that exact position. Once I do that, I have a test that is already has the first step of navigating to that screen, and I can just start typing my test steps in plain English. But what I want to really do is connect our interactive browser and start working with it interactively. So we're spinning up that browser now. It takes a few seconds. The browser will spin up. We have a screen share to it, and it will already execute our first step of navigating to that screen. Now I can just interact with it and record a test. Automatically, the browser is recording steps, so I can scroll down and click the contact us link. Let me zoom in a bit to make the screen bigger. I can type in my name. I can type my email address. And I can choose a contact reason. Click the submit button and add a visual checkpoint to check the entire page. So as you can see on the left-hand side, all the actions that are did are now listed as plain English instructions. I could have written them, but much faster, within less than a minute, I could just record them and author them, and they appear here in plain English. The fact that it's in plain English is super important. First of all, the test is highly readable and maintainable. Everyone on the team that understands quality can understand this test and maintain it. Another important part is that there are no element locators here, so it's very clear what the test is doing, but also this test is completely independent of how the page is built, which means that it is much more robust. Even if a developer will go in now and replace the way that a certain button is implemented or how the contact us link is implemented, as long as there is a contact us link, the AI will click it and it doesn't care how it's implemented, which is not the case with element locators, as many of you know. Now, you can still have the ability to run JavaScript here on a step. You have the ability to use an element locator, just say click the element with a CSS locator, blah, blah, blah. And if you do that, we do have self-healing on our test infrastructure, on our execution cloud, and it will help that element from not breaking when your UI changes. But out of the box, the way that we want you to use the product is to just use plain English. Now, it's not just about recording. I can easily replay the test to make sure that it works. And if it works here, it will work when it executes offline because it's the same exact browser and the same exact environment that is running it. Okay, so I can be 100% confident that it will run correctly when I schedule it to run offline. So let's see how I can edit this test. If I go back to our demo application, there is another state that is interesting to me in this flow, which is the error state. What happens if I forget to enter the details of the form and I click submit? As you can see, I have an error messages appearing and I want to test this error condition. So with this interactive custom flow authoring approach, I have multiple ways of doing that. One of them is just to get to the correct place in the test, just after getting to the form, and just adding steps here. I can say, click the submit button, and then visually check the screen to make sure that it is as expected. Okay, very easy, and I'm done. On the other hand, if I'm lazy, I don't want to write it down, or I don't know what to write, and I do want to record, I can actually ask, just like any developer would do, I can actually ask to rerun the test until this point. But what if this change happened at the end of a very long test and I don't want to wait a full minute for it to run all the way there? I can actually manually resync the state of the browser and my tests and my test steps. So I can stop recording so that my interaction with the browser won't affect my test. I can then head to the clean contact us form, where I want to resume recording, and I can just set the current step in my test. Now I have a new synchronization point between these two, and I can just resume recording, click the submit button, and add my visual checkpoint, and I'm there. Okay, so very, very easy to author tests, to debug them, to edit them, super easy, and it takes just seconds to do. Pretty cool, huh? Next, we are constantly enhancing our language model, of course, and one of the biggest things that we have added in this release is the ability for it to autocorrect and beautify the step descriptions. It means that if I'm now writing my test by hand or importing them from an external source, instead of just showing me errors on anything that I do wrong, it will actually automatically fix those errors for me. So it will fix grammatical and syntactical errors. If I'm writing the steps in a cumbersome way, it will simplify and beautify them so that at the end of the day, my tests remain concise and readable. And it also means that if I build very complex and compound commands, it will break them down into atomic commands, which are first of all more readable, but more importantly, it gives us a final level of granularity to debug them, because before each and every one of them, I will have this before and after image and all the details about the action. Okay, so it will be more granular. So let's see this autocorrection in action. First of all, I'll move the current step up here, so I won't be executing this stuff. I don't want to mess up the test. So let's take step number 5. Let's say that instead of type, I wrote tape. Innocent mistake. Instead of showing me an error, the AI automatically corrected it back to type, and it is showing me here that it actually did that. So I'm not surprised by it. Similarly, if I forget to add double quotes to disambiguate my test, double quotes are important because if I say type Adam Carmi in the name field, what do I mean? I want to type everything to the right of after type in the text box, or do I actually want to type Adam Carmi in the name field? Double quotes actually help me clarify what it is that I want to do. But sometimes when we are on a roll and just type away, we forget to disambiguate. So in this case, the AI takes care of it. It looks at the step, understands what is the most likely way to disambiguate the step, and actually adds those double quotes for me, and not annoying me with errors that I have to go back and correct. Another example is obscured English. Let's say that here, instead of clicking the submit button, I'm saying at the bottom of the page, click the submit button. The AI automatically rearranged the sentence to start with the verb so I can clearly see what is the action that's being done, and it's now saying click the submit button at the bottom of the page, which is more readable for everyone. And again, if someone on the team doesn't speak good English and he writes things in a awkward way, it's a great way to keep the test nice and tidy for everyone else. Now, this is a tool that is intended to write tests in English, although it can interact with elements in a different language. But because we have a language model here and because it is autocorrecting, it can do nice things. So for example, if I go to, don't try this at home. If I go to Google Translate and I will say, click the submit button and translate it to, let's pick Hindi. Again, I don't have any idea what's written here, but I'll just copy it and write it down this way. You can see that it still gets fixed to click on the whatever it is button. Now, everything that is within double quotes does not get corrected for obvious reasons, because that's actually a description of the element that I'm interacting with. And maybe I'm doing some negative testing, so we shouldn't fix typos or anything. But in this case, it's not changed. I can click easily change it to submit again. Okay, so pretty cool, wonderful technology. We only accept changes that we can prove are working, so no worries about hallucinations here. If there is any hallucination, we can check that. If it doesn't make sense, we just keep the error and you have to fix it yourself. So completely safe and works in your benefit. Okay. The next topic is non-visual assertions. And basically, in this release, we allow you to combine the powerful visual checkpoints that Applitools offers with non-visual assertions, anything that you could write in code. And you can use it to verify dynamic data and deal with random data. You can verify textual content, formats, patterns, even compare and match with regular expressions. You can verify numeric values and quantities, check element visibility and whether elements are selected. You can verify items in a list or in a dictionary, in a JSON object. And of course, you can use Boolean operators such as and, or, not, etc. To build very complex assertions. So let's see this in action. Let's run all the way here to filling out my name in the name field. And let's write some assertions as an example. Okay, let's enter Adam Carmi as name. Great. So let's write the assertion. Verify that the text in the name field is capitalized, for example. That works. Let's verify, because Adam Carmi is capitalized, let's verify that it is lowercase. It doesn't work because it's not lowercase. I can do something more compound. Let's make sure that the name field is capitalized and starts with Adam. Okay, that works. So we can go on and on. You get the picture. Everything that you have in your code in Selenium, Cypress, Playwright, whatever that you can assert on, you can do it now with plain English. Now, when we're talking about assertions, of course, everyone thinks about what if I want to do data-driven testing. That's very easy to do as well. So let's get this step out of the way so it won't execute. And let's use parameters. So using parameters and variables is super easy. You would just use a curly braces notation. You just need to add, instead of Adam Carmi, name. Okay, that's it. Now we have a parameter for the test, which is name. Now we can verify that the text in the name field, after I type it, is name. We can get rid of this empty step. We can change the email to be a parameter email. Okay, super easy. Now, in order for me to run this test, I need to provide values for these parameters. I have this icon over here that allows me to do it. These parameters are already populated at the global level, name and email. This is Moshe, my dear co-founder, and his email. So let's set the values. And now if we rerun our test, we can see that we are filling out Moshe's name and Moshe's email, and the validations actually validates Moshe's name, so it's super easy to work with dynamic data. Just as a reminder, when we are adding this, saving this test and adding it to a plan to execute, we need to provide the values for the execution, either explicitly, like I've done here, or we use the data set that we upload and attach the test to the data set. A data set is a tabular file that basically has columns for variable names and rows for variable values. And if you attach a test to the data set, it will basically run multiple times, once for each row on the data set. So this is what we call data-driven testing. Before we conclude the discussion about assertions, non-visual assertions, parameters is not the only thing we want to use. We also want to define variables where you can capture dynamic data and use it in subsequent test steps or assert on it. So for example, in our test, when I complete it, I basically post a request for someone to get back to me, and I have the acknowledgement here at the final step. And it tells me that I can track this request using an ID. So let's capture this ID over here, which is dynamic. I can say it in a lot of ways in English, but I can say, for example, store the value to the right of your request as request ID. It executed. I can take a look what happened, and I can see that a request ID variable was created, and this is its value, right? Pretty straightforward. Now I can validate, for example, that verify that request ID, it's a variable, so I use it the same way, is a number, for example. And it is a number, so the validation succeeded. Okay, pretty straightforward, flexible, and easy to use. Okay, last but not least, API call initiation. Basically, using version 2.0, you can actually initiate HTTP requests from your custom flows. Basically, you can do anything that you can do with Postman or curl. In plain English, you can specify whatever HTTP operation you want to call. You can specify whatever header you want to use, multiple headers, whatever cookie. You have full access to responses, whether it's the cookies, headers, body, and you can capture them, store them in variables, use them in subsequent test steps, in subsequent API calls. You're free to do whatever you want with it. This is extremely useful for several use cases. First of all, it allows you to reset the application state quickly before starting a test. It allows you to skip complex or slow and repetitive UI flows in the middle of your UI tests. And it also, and very importantly, allows you to verify results that are only available on the backend. So for example, in our demo, at the end of the test, we actually posted a request to contact us. But how can we be sure that indeed all the details that we filled out in our request form were actually posted correctly on the backend? Luckily, our demo application exposes an API endpoint that allows us to get this information directly from the backend. Okay, and the way that we do it is that we just do a HTTP GET call to our sandbox application. This is the endpoint, get contact status. It takes a query parameter ID where we will pass the request ID that we just captured, and it requires an access key that we pass as a header. So you can see it's just described in English. I can describe it in many other forms in English, but this is just as good as any. Let's copy it and paste it here and execute it. Now we can look at the results, and we can see that our request returned 200 OK status. There were no cookies returned. We have access to all the headers that were part of the response, and we have access to the response body, which is a JSON object in this case. I could also look at the request details if I wanted to, but let's not do it right now. Now, what I'd like to do is assert on that object. I can either access each individual request here. I can easily copy the value. I can copy the path to that property to assert on it. And I can even copy an entire assertion to the clipboard. I can do it at the specific property level, and I can just copy the entire payload and assert on it. Okay, so if I do that, and I paste it over here, it is a very long assertion, but once I enter it, the AI, the autocorrecting LLM, would split it into multiple steps. And we can see that it also taking into account the variables and the parameters that we have already defined in this context. So it says verify that the response body data email field is an email, which is a parameter, making sure that the name matches the name, making sure that the contact reason is demo request, making sure that the date is this value, but this is constant. I don't want it to fail my next run, so I'll just remove it. And making sure that the status is submitted. Wonderful. I can let this test run to the end, making sure that it works, and I'm done. So you can see how with very little effort, I can record tests, debug them in real time, run the test, verify that it works, initiate API calls, easily assert on their responses, capture the responses in variables, use them in subsequent interactions with the UI or to feed subsequent API calls. Super easy, super exciting, at least to me and my team, and I hope that you also think that way. So, to wrap things up very quickly before we are done, Autonomous 2.0 is an autonomous testing platform for websites and multi-page web applications. It's a complete end-to-end platform that provides you everything that you need to get started out of the box. It will create a self-adjusting, self-maintaining test suite for your website without you having to lift a finger. It gives you the best experience in the industry today to author custom flows with an interactive browser and an autocorrection LLM that actually makes sure that you can quickly and easily author a test without worrying about errors and small mistakes. You're using the best visual AI, computer vision technology in the industry, and automate the test maintenance that saves a huge amount of time, maintenance time for you by avoiding repetitive maintenance activities. You can mix and match visual AI with functional data-driven testing and do everything that you can do in your coded test just in plain English. You get cross-device and browser testing out of the box, and you can even do API testing, doing everything you can do with Postman and with curl, initiate HTTP requests, full control on headers, cookies, anything that you need on the expected response code, etc., and easy assertions on the responses themselves. So I'm done. My presentation is done, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Hey, thanks, Adam. Let's go ahead and jump into some questions now. So for our first one, can test results be exported to a test case management tool like Jira, TestRail, or Zephyr?
So in version 2.0, it is not possible to do it automatically, but you can definitely copy the descriptions and just paste them there if you want. In future versions, we will add this ability.
Great. Okay, next one. What data is collected and used by the AI LLM engine, thinking that perhaps security issues with users' credential storage and access?
Excellent. So basically, we don't store anything that you wouldn't store with any other platform. Basically, we store your tests, whatever is written there, and we store the images of baselines and checkpoint images. And of course, we collect the statistics and test results so we can actually provide to you what the product is aimed to do. One thing that is very important is that we don't train our models live from the data that you provide, and we never train our models with your data at all. Everything we need to train our models, we can synthesize by ourselves. We use models just to solve problems. They get input, they provide output, but they don't store the data and they don't learn from it, and nothing in your data will ever be used to train the models that serve you nor any other customer. Okay, that's very important to clarify. Excellent question.
Great points. All right, next question. Is the tool able to test calculations, for example, check an employee's current leave balance, submit and improve leave request, and then confirm the new balance?
So the plain answer, if you're imagining that AI can actually answer any question that you have, then no. It only can do things that we trained it to do. But if you want to do some custom stuff like that, you can always execute just any JavaScript that you want. So you can have a custom flow that actually evaluates in code whatever it is that you want to do, accessing your internal libraries or whatever, and then just output it as a variable, and it can be used by other test steps that are in plain English.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next one. With the self-maintaining test, how far will Autonomous attempt to keep the test valid, and will it advise you if a new test is needed if it can't be fixed?
Yeah, so first of all, as I described, the self-maintaining part of Autonomous cannot basically fail. I mean, it crawls your website, finds all the pages. If there are errors on the pages, it will let you know. It will find all the new ones and let you know when some previous pages no longer exist. So it gives you all that coverage, and that's it. We are not claiming that it does more than that. If there are forms on the page, anything like that, it's up to you to write custom flows to fill them out. It is possible that in future releases of Autonomous, and it is on the roadmap, we will actually detect the presence of forms and controls that we cannot interact with, and see for ourselves if you've written tests that do interact with them and highlight if they are missing. Right now, we don't do it. But then again, Autonomous 2.0 is just the second version of an amazing product with an amazing technology that has years ahead of it to evolve. I promise you that version 3.0 would be even much more amazing with this one.
Awesome. Next, how do we parameterize input values instead of hard coding it? I think you showed this. Earlier.
Yeah, I showed it, yeah, with variables. You simply just use the curly braces variable notation. Any variable that you use is either a parameter that has to be provided externally when running the test, or if it is assigned inside the test, then it's just a variable and you don't require providing it from the outside. Okay, so for example, the request ID variable that I shown you, I assigned it from within the test, so it's not a parameter. On the contrary, the name and email parameters or variables, I use them and no one assigned them before they're used, so they are parameters and they have to be assigned from the outside. Of course, there is, I didn't show it, but it also exists in the first version of Autonomous. There is a test data page or section in Autonomous where you can see the list of all the parameters of all the tests in Autonomous, and you can see exactly which tests are using that parameter. So it's very easy to manage and see exactly how parameters are used across all your tests.
Great. Okay. Now, the next one is about the LLM corrections. It says in plain English, but I believe there are specific keywords needed to be used to keep consistent, like click the versus tap the and enter the or type in the. How does it handle?
As you saw, it's much more than that. I think that you saw that you can write things that are not click and they would still get interpreted into clicks. Yeah, for example, if you would have a custom flow that says buy a book and now you're writing purchase a book, it will still work and it's not a click, right? So you can go into custom verbs and custom ways to describe operations as well.
Great. And this next question, just a reiteration, does the tool support only visual testing? How about APIs? Of course, we talked about API testing and non-visual assertions.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So covered that one.
That's the answer. Yeah.
All right. Next one after that. Will we be able to pipe authoring and execution through a VPN connection?
Oh, I do want to highlight, Tim, one thing about it. Yes, we support non-visual assertions and API calls, but not just that. I think it's the best combination of these approaches together that you can find in any tool today, which is important to say as well.
Great point. So just to jump back to this question, we'll be able to pipe authoring and execution through a VPN connection.
Yes, so we support a secure tunnel that allows you to basically easily deploy a tunnel in your network, associate host names that are reachable through the tunnel as a setup phase for autonomous. And then when you're executing tests, you don't need to think about it anymore. If you're executing your tests on a host name that is associated with the tunnel, automatically all the traffic from our browsers will be routed through that tunnel behind your firewall. If, on the other hand, you're running it on a host that is not associated with the tunnel, then the request will go out to the internet, hopefully hitting something that is publicly available. Now, you can set up multiple tunnels, as many as you want, and you can even have multiple tunnels serving the same hosts, which means that it just gives you high availability. So Autonomous will be able to route request to your host in multiple ways. Even if one of the tunnels drops, it can still serve it from the other. So it's a very robust solution. And again, it requires a one-time setup, which is very simple. And then everyone can just use Autonomous without thinking about tunnels, and it's very easy. So you can test applications behind your firewall, for sure.
And so I'm going to group a few questions here about authentication. How do we handle authentication? Do we handle two-factor authentication?
Yes. So there are many ways to do it. First of all, you can provide basic authentication credentials, which is easy. You can create a custom flow to perform login with custom steps in plain English. You can use the API calls to authenticate with an authenticator app and do basically whatever it is you want, and just reuse that custom flow as a pre-step to anything else, to the autonomous scan itself. So yes, you're covered in terms of authentication.
Awesome. Next one, this is about reusing steps. Can we use steps in different tests? And can you also use text in one step in another step?
So
like text assertion.
To use text, you can define a variable and you just use it, multiple times. To reuse a test in another test, yes, this is included in the upcoming version.
Great. Okay, this one's a little bit involved. I have an application with many user roles, and there's a substantial overlap in terms of access to modules in the application, but they don't necessarily see the same fields due to levels of privacy. How would we handle that?
So first of all, I think that just like you would handle it with a coded test, there is no difference. You can basically provide the credentials as parameters and just log in, have maybe separate tests for different users with different credentials, or write very flexible tests that do different things based on the credentials. One of the things that I can say, at least on the visual AI level, is that the values that you pass as parameters to the test affect the baselines themselves. So if, for example, you're running a test in two different use cases that affect the presentation of the UI, and you're running it with two different credentials, for example, that modify the appearance of it, then automatically you will get a different baselines for each of these credentials, and the baselines won't override each other. So for the visual AI part of it, you're good and you don't have to worry about it, and what you expect will happen. Of course, if you're running non-visual assertions and functional steps there, you need to be more creative about how you handle it. But the simplest possible way is just to have separate tests for these different flows.
Okay. Next one, does the test work for websites independent of technologies? And will the test continue to work if the underlying technologies and JavaScript frameworks are changed while the look and feel remain the same?
Yeah, so as I explained before, because we are not relying, so first of all, we support the web. Okay, this is supported right now. Since we don't base the tests on locators, then the test is very robust. I mean, as long as if the look and feel did not change and there's a button with a certain text or identification, or a link is there with certain text, then the way that the test is naturally built for you, or the way that we encourage you to build it, we won't care which framework you use under the hood. If you are using element locators, then if you switch UI technology, you're probably rewriting the page completely, and that can have a devastating effect on your test. So we recommend that you don't use element locators. But for the usual changes, as long as you're not rewriting the entire page, self-filling is very robust. So even if you do choose to use element locators, self-filling will help you out there. And our self-filling technology is extremely robust, out of our execution cloud test infrastructure.
Awesome. So just one last question, and we will answer the rest of the questions with some of our product specialists individually afterwards. So last question, PDF content validation. Can we do that with Autonomous?
Not yet. You can do it with Preflight, which is another product of ours, but it will find its way into Autonomous very soon.
Awesome. So with that, I'll move on to our next steps. Adam, if you could throw up that one slide that's got the trial information on it for me.
Oh, you can also test PDFs with eyes as well, of course. But with Preflight, you can also automate filling out the forms and all of that, which is pretty cool. Yeah, please go ahead.
Great. Cool. So the Autonomous 1.0 free trials now available on applitools.com, and we put the link as well right here. You can see at the bottom of your screen. Trials will be updated to Autonomous 2.0 and extended to 14 days from the launch date, which will be by the end of the month here. And Applitools customers, you can just contact your customer support manager directly to start using Autonomous now. So thanks to everyone who joined us today. And of course, thank you, Adam, for an excellent session. As I mentioned, if we didn't get to your question, don't worry, we've captured them all and we'll share them with our product specialist to follow up with you. And there's also a link where you can set a quick call to discuss the specific use cases on the resources tab. Again, thanks everyone for joining. I hope to see you again. Good one.
Thank you, everyone.